Coach Bell, year 3 for you, and with Brock having the starting job, something we didn't know last year going into things. How have things changed this spring for you when you're approaching the quarterbacks and the offense? And then, what have you been looking for to see, Brock improve from last year?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you're able, from the day the season ends to the day you start your pre-spring preparations in the wintertime leading up to spring football, is you're able to build an entire system around him, knowing that he is going to be the starter. He's really entrenched. The team believes in him. That's going to be our guy. And so you're able to start to build a system that features his skills, the things that he does best, and so a lot more system comfortability going in, knowing that these are the things that he does well. I think the second part of that is in spring football. You look at his skills like a toolbox. We all know he's a tough kid. We all know he can run. He threw the ball serviceably last year. We got to get him from a 62% passer. We got to get him to 67, 68, 69% passer. And so it's his toolbox. Whatever those dull tools are, we got to make them sharper. And so this spring we're really trying to grow his game and build his toolbox, to make us a more complete offense.
I know it's still kind of early in spring, but just as you guys have tried to sharpen some of those tools, what have you seen from him? How have you seen him kind of develop from, maybe more off-season training to now here in the midst of spring ball, and just what has you excited about how he's developed?
Just much more comfortability from a system standpoint, because it's not just that he's back, it's Avion's back, it's Balin's back, it's Terrence is back, Kavion Boone Nelson's back, there are a lot of people back. And so now you're starting to accrue a bunch of repetitions. Pass protection's been much better, just because the amount of repetitions, drop back pass that we recruit, trying to build Brock's skills. But just, you feel really good about where he is right now. Obviously, we got to continue working throughout the summer up until September.
You mentioned the weapons there. I guess how much have they kind of grown their game and evolved, and kind of, I guess, it seems like there's a chance for almost have a lot more functional depth with how many guys who have just played from last year who are kind of new.
No, absolutely, and that's part of that's up front. Obviously you have Schuster back, you have Whitenack back, you have Jeremy Sliker back, you got Dabo back. So you've got a big part of the O-line that's back, and then we're building a lot of depth there. You got a big group of wideouts back. And I think with the 5 or 6 wideouts that played a bunch for us last year, just system mastery. Now instead of learning lines on paper and X's and O's, now it's more about technique and techniques and fundamentals within the schemes, truly understanding, the hows and the whys, as opposed to just what the line on the paper tells you to do. And so you're kind of able to move to, from English 101 to English 102. And hopefully that helps us grow throughout the year.
A guy that impressed in camp last fall was Egypt Nelson. He ended up not being eligible for the season. Now he's ready to go. What does he bring to that wide receiver group?
Again, another big, long target. He can win above his face mask. He's physical in the run game. He's a really good perimeter blocker. So, we're extremely excited to have him back and in the rotation, and really excited to see the growth of Terrence Marshall as well. Now as a redshirt sophomore and a guy that, elite long speed. So we're excited to see both those guys that, Egypt didn't play at all last year. Terrence played a little bit last year. And so now you feel like you got 4 really good outside guys between, Balin, Avion, Egypt, and Terrence. So it's an exciting group.
Talk about the development of a lot of these guys, a lot of these weapons that you have. For you, this is still your toolbox to try and, build with this offense as well. You guys so much run heavy last year, but maybe having those opportunities to spread the ball out, play a little, 3 wide, 4 wide sets, just what it means for you, the excitement that you have to try and hopefully expand this offense. And we know you guys can still, run the ball, but maybe throw it and catch teams off guard and attack.
Well, I think the biggest thing is last year we did what we had to do to win. Nobody's excited if we're not MAC champs. And so we made a concerted effort last year based on how our team was currently constructed, our situation at quarterback, and the skill of our defense. We were going to hammer you and try to break your face mask, and that's how we were going to win games. And ultimately, Coach Taylor made the right decision and allowed us to win a championship. And as the season takes place, again, it's whatever we need to be the best team that we can be. I'm been a coordinator for a long time. I've had some really good years, some really bad years. I'm far beyond how many points we score, how many yards we have. There's a time in my life that was really important to me. All I care about is winning now. And so whatever Coach Taylor needs us to do, obviously, every time we go out there, do we want to score? Absolutely. Do we want to play good football? Yes. But we've got to do what the team needs us to do to win. So if that means run it, if that means throw it every single play, it is what it is. But just winning is much more important than how it looks.
How are you feeling about the running back room? Obviously, Jalen headlines things coming back. You also get Ofa back, add AJ, Cole. Hopefully, had a chance to go healthy this year. Again, it's kind of another room where you guys have just, by guys who played last year coming back, you have a lot of depth and a lot of seems like diverse skill sets. Seems like you can get a lot.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, we all know that Jalen is a phenomenal football player, and if he hadn't have dealt with some of the injuries he had, people would truly know how good of a football player he is. But to have Jalen back is huge. Just how he prepares, how he works. As good of a football player as we all know he is, he's an even better person, and I think that's hard for a lot of people to understand, how truly what a great person he is. To have Lolo back, he's a little bit of an injury situation right now, just from the bowl game, but he'll be back. To have him back is huge. Another smart, intelligent, tough, just all the things you want in a player. And then you had AJ, and now you've got Cole healthy, and Cole's had a really good spring. We're all offensively, we're really proud of kind of where Cole is right now. Catching the football, because he's a really versatile piece, because he's a really good athlete. He can play out in space, and you can get him in empty, and you can throw him the ball out of the backfield. And so we're excited about the room. And then, when young Mr. Triplett gets healthy, excited to see him too in fall camp.
Tight end, a bit of an unproven group. There's a couple of guys that have been here for a while, but most have been special teams contributors. And then some freshmen that were redshirted last year. They now kind of get a chance to prove themselves on the field.
Yeah, well, Parks and Levicki, the two additions, are great additions. They both, because as people know that have watched us play, we play with a lot of tight ends, a lot of differing roles in the core, out of the core, in the backfield, 12 and 13 personnel. And so, Parks and Levicki, can do a lot of those skills, both strong, both really good at the point of attack, both athletic enough to play outside the core. Anese Tonga, another addition, big, physical, in line, really hard, really tough, going to be a big addition to the interior of the run game. Wooten, same thing, hard, tough, has been here, one of our best special teams players. And then after that, Brotherton, Rode, Rushlow, younger guys haven't played very much, but excited to get Brotherton because he's got elite outside the box skills for a tight end. Really run, really athletic. Brady Rhodes a mixture of both. Rushlow's just learning, so we're excited about the room. All three are the new additions we feel really good about, and now it's just finding out what they do best, putting them in roles where they can have success.
Just overall, being your third year here, just seeing how everyone has developed in your system, in the offensive schemes that you guys have put forward. Again, where you guys are at this point in the spring, just sort of that overall, maybe the calm or the ease of knowing that, guys do know the systems now, guys do know what you're, those level of expectations, and, that's all well in the past. And again, it can be just building and growing and hopefully, as you said, just putting up more wins when all is said and done.
Yeah, I think, because you go through that in the spring is, you install a certain way when you first get to a place, and that adapts and changes. You learn your personnel, maybe going to say, in this third year, especially as many guys we have back, that was kind of a little bit of the battle. Is we could put it all in today and we'd be okay. Is that the right thing? So it's the balance of, all right, what's enough for the older kids, because they're a lot more prepared, but we do have new additions that we have to be mindful of. We see a lot of defense from our group, which is good because it makes you work every day. It makes you, it makes you mentally a better football player. So that's been a little bit of the battle. Is we've got a large veteran presence where we could be way, 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 way ahead, and we are. But at the same time, we've got to be mindful of the new additions and making sure they learn this thing from an ABC level so we can get to DEFs. And so in the summer, because now it's a January to September process to basically teach an offense to a new group of kids every year. And so it's a 9-month plan to get you in position for the season. So we're excited about where we are. We are ahead, but still mindful of we still got to get techniques and fundamentals in the schemes before we're too worried about schemes.
Kind of to bounce off that with Trey coming in at quarterback, just how's he doing he's kind of one of those.
He's doing a good job.
So.
Yeah, same thing. Where we are offensively probably is a little bit of a detriment to him because there is a bunch on his plate. From the day he got here, simply because all the people around him, are at a little bit, football 102, football 103. So he's still learning, growing, probably thinking a little too much right now, but he's got great physical tools, will help us, at some point.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.